best chance for the country and for the world. And then they wake up and the results are in, and the guy that they hate most on planet Earth is the president. It's pretty sad. It's pretty sad. They just, I would imagine some of them go to therapy over this. I'm not even joking. I would imagine some of them go to therapy over this. I know, I've witnessed this, that families stop talking to each other. I've had members of my family that stop talking to each other. I've always played the high road thing where I'm just like, oh, I dislike both of them equally. And then everybody gives me a pass. And so, like, at family events, I don't go more difficult on one than I do the other. But I'll ask questions, to stir the pot a little bit. But because I'm not a Republican or a Democrat, I don't catch the strays that you would expect. But the title of the room we just changed, Unpacking Why Kamala Lost to Trump. I want someone to take a shot. Why do you think she lost?
Because the president wasn't going to fall for a foot-cooking ass Indian cosplaying as a black American.
No, she's a woman.
I think you can boil a good portion of it down to Trump sold the future, Biden-Harris sold the president. And at least in my lifetime in American elections, the person who's selling the future always does better than the person who's selling the status quo.
So I heard a couple things. I heard because she's a woman, heard status quo. What's the real reason she lost?
She's a foot-cooking Indian that was raised in fucking Canada. I mean, does there need to be any more of a reason? Like, America's not buying this bag of freaking spoiled garbage.
Because, Mr. Mojo, I must unburden what has been. I mean, like, that shit got real weird, okay? And if that didn't do you in, the stuff about the yellow school bus, I mean, she had some word salad that was just like, what? And then for me, it just was a little scary with our open border and knowing that she had lied. And it wasn't even lied. It was like asked in an interview, and she's like, I haven't been to, Europe, so what? It was just like, what the fuck? I mean, if Hillary Clinton would have been a bad first lady president, this one, no way. Not holding the codes to the nukes, man.
Kitty, let me ask you a question. I want your expert analysis on this. Do you think if she had said that she washed her greens in the sink like a normal human being, you think she would have done better in the election?
Maybe with the black vote, but she had already won over the female black vote. It was the guys that got privy to her crazy. So I don't really want to say yes to that. I'm against it. Also, now that you bring that up, and she got sassy black in Atlanta, and then turned around and flipped the switch, was like all white girl in California. That was kind of weird.
Hey, can you give me your best impersonation when she was thanking a union member?
I probably will do a bad one right now. I'm trying to think of that one YouTuber chick. She did it awesomely. Like it was her laugh. Her laugh terrified me. That was the one that stuck out in my head. It was like that cackle. No, I don't. I really don't think I can. Terrifying. It gives me nightmares.
Hello.
Oh my God.
My name.
There's been a lot of trolls tonight. A lot of pseudo-black trolls, like from, South Philly, but they claim to be from, Durka, or somewhere in Africa. I'm just saying.
All right, hey. I'm not going to do too much of this weird shit, so...
Nope, but I really want to ask Alexa. Remember,
I'm going to have it.
Mojo.
Oh, all right. Let me see where the button is. There it is. Sorry, Kitty, you got to...
So, in every election, there's some vulnerability that the politician has to show that connects with the people. I mean, Obama took a minute, but he found hope and change. She was unable to show any vulnerability, any way to criticize Biden. And yes, she only had 90, 120 days, whatever. But there was, whether you like Trump or not, and I didn't vote for him, he was authentic. People sensed what he spoke was what he believed for the most part. And he connected with enough people, and Republican messaging is always better. If you could keep it on the border, if you could stop the steal, which was a hoax, even their birther criticism of Obama, still, it was messaging, they're eating the cats and the dogs, got to some people, and the Democrats were all over the place, and they allowed, when Trump said, your kid could go to school as a boy and come home a girl. They allowed the fringe parts of the Democratic Party to be portrayed as mainstream. And America isn't that, and they lost.
I'll try and take a crack at this. Democrats can't have the moral high ground on quote unquote defending democracy when their candidate is installed, literally bypassing the guy that was actually nominated to be the next nominee for the Democrat. I think her bypassing the primary avoided her actually building even the smallest of coalitions you could imagine, a genuine coalition. Instead, they put on this media-ran AstroTurf campaign to generate some enthusiasm, and she paid, millions of dollars out to celebrities to come out, and that only does so much. They propped her up, at least initially when she got announced, they propped her up for a good few weeks to try and hold on to what momentum they could. However, they had all the media and even fake polling in their favor, and she never had a chance. She never had a chance, and neither did Biden have a chance either. He never recovered after the pullout of Afghanistan, and it was just a dwindle of support, because when you talk as much shit as you do about Donald Trump in his first 4 years, his first term, and then you deliver Joe Biden, this senile segregationist, and that's the best the Democrats could have. Of course they're going to have people that are not enthusiastic to vote for him or are willing to switch their vote. And what happened, and Trump benefited 2 times from running against the first 2 women, which they're just bad politicians. I'm not against women politicians. I'm a fan of Margaret Thatcher. However, he benefited big time from running against a Hillary and Kamala, which they don't have the it factor. And I don't know how else to describe it than that, but they're bad at what they do.
How are they going to regroup? Like, what do you think they're thinking right now? Like, clearly they lost. Do you think they changed their playbook to some extent?
I don't think they are.
That's what they are thinking.
There's been no postmortem, I'm sorry. And I think that there needs to be some introspection. The biggest problem with the Democratic Party is that they've been waiting for Trump to fail since 2015. And that playbook hasn't worked.
Yeah, I agree. They're going to probably run against Trump again in 2026 and in 2028. And you can tell by a lot, just by talking to Democrat voters, and what they are parroting is just the same old talking points about Donald Trump. And I've asked this question before, and it just goes over their head. They can't even imagine. I'm like, okay, you're going to run against Donald Trump essentially for the 4th time coming up in 2028 here. Do you think it's going to work this time in getting a majority of the voting?
I wonder if anybody's ever sat them down and just said, let's think about this logically. We've thrown everything that we can at Donald Trump. They tried to kill him. They tried to throw him in jail. They tried to throw him off the ballot. They tried to put him 6 feet under. None of it worked, and the country preferred him over their candidate. Now, I don't know what they're thinking, but I just want that aha moment where the people that hate him the most, that thought by saying, oh, but what about this and what about that, to realize the realization that the country preferred him over the Democratic Party and their candidate. I want to be present when those aha moments are there. I would love to hear a Democrat just you know, like you made mistakes in the past and then you age and then you're like, oh shit, you know, looking back on it, if I would have just, you know, when I was at that fork in the road, if I would have went left instead of right, you know, maybe, you know, and you start thinking about these things more deeply and you realize like, fuck, I fucked up. Are the Democrats between now and the midterms or between now and the 2028 election, are they going to have those moments where they say, we really fucked this thing up?
No.
I don't think they have it in them to do that.
We haven't seen it yet. Yeah, I'm going to give an outsider's perspective from a non-American. And what I saw, and part of the reasons why I think that it's all about, I think that she lost rather than Trump actually won. There was a weak public image that was, you know, that was definitely there. I think she was perceived as being very ineffective in her communication. That's number one. She had low approval ratings, from what I remember as well. I think one of the other factors was that she was seen perhaps as like inheriting, I guess, like a small luggage, so that she was basically going to be Biden, 2.0. I think part of the other reason why Trump worked well because he had a relatively high turnout. The campaign messaging also was just fucking wishy-washy, and how she turned up in terms of her performance when it came to the debates, I thought was like terrible. I think people really saw that. I think part of the big reason why Trump won, or actually she lost, was because I think America was sick and tired of hearing and having a leftist-related policy, right, social policy, and people wanted to be able to have the strength. I don't think that I think if there was another Trump, a different type of person, it wouldn't have mattered as long as the person was strong. So in order for them to be able to regroup, they need somebody with strength, conviction, clarity, somebody who could really hold up the banner very high.
Do they have anybody that fits that description?
I wouldn't have a clue.
Yeah, it's funny because they would probably come up with names, and then the names that they would throw out, most of the people in this room would laugh. Like if you threw up Gavin Newsom, for example, right? I'll tell you this: if Gavin Newsom were to run, holy shit! If you think Harris lost bad, it will be even fucking worse.
And
Because-
he really tried to step away from the Democratic Party in a lot of ways recently in his podcast.
Yeah, I think he's trying to position himself. In fact, I think he had set himself up to be a backup plan. They actually thought they were in good footing when they had Harris run. But what was really odd, one of the strangest things that we saw in the last cycle, was when DeSantis and Newsom had a debate, a public debate between governors of two different states. These are people that both have presidential aspirations, but yet, why are they debating each other? And clearly, the hope was on Newsom's side was that he wants to get national attention and get his name out there. I don't think he could win though. I think that the commercials that they would run in every state outside of the West, you surrender the severely deep blue states, but you put all your spend into commercials in all the other states to just simply say, actually, you don't even need to spend in the deep red, but you just all of the purple areas, when you're looking at okay, these are the states I have to win. You just throw all your money into, do you want the nation to be run like California? And then you just show the fucking the things that are going on in California. I don't think he could survive. This would be another situation. I remember before the election when some of you guys were talking about, the Democrats are going to, Brent was on here, he would say, oh, the Democrats will hold the blue wall, that's how they're going to win. And then after the election, he denied ever saying that. I don't think in any of those states, the swing states, if you guys remember, I said that Trump was going to sweep all of the swing states. I said it, I was correct. Even Republicans were like, no, you're being too optimistic. And I was like, no, I'm reading the tea leaves here. And I called it. And I will call this, and I'll call this from a distance. If Gavin Newsom is the candidate, I don't even care who the Republican is. Gavin Newsom will lose by a wider margin than Harris lost to Trump.
I don't know about a wider margin, but it's the entire West Coast that copies, the failed policies of California can be used as an example. And you know that, Roger, I know you know that. I think that Gavin Newsom can actually debate. Gavin Newsom is a shapeshifter. He, can portray his politics as being good and better when they've been worse. And so it depends. But I think he can actually debate, and that's one thing he has that is better than Harris.
He's also handsome.
Newsom would have to try and come to the middle just a little bit. And you saw when he just was recently interviewed by Charlie Kirk, Charlie Kirk was on his podcast, and he came out and said, well, probably men in women's sports isn't a good look, or maybe we need to change that. He got skewered by the radical leftists after that. And I think the Democrats are in an issue that they have. It's a structural issue where the radical left have taken over the party, so much so that if you try to run any type of moderate position, they will defeat you down either in a primary, or they won't show up to vote the national election. So I think they have to go back to the drawing board. Trump was lucky enough to put himself in positions where early on he was winning 80-20 rule, 80-20 issues, kind of like the men and women's sports. 80% of America don't think men should be in women's sports, and yet the Democrats continue to double down on this ideology, this radical gender ideology.
I'll make a prediction. If he runs against someone like Vance, Vance destroys him in a debate. If he runs against someone like Rubio, Rubio destroys him in a debate. If he runs against, I'll pick someone on the bench on the R side, Glenn Youngkin, destroys him in a debate. I think Newsom is definitely better than she is, but it won't hold a candle debating the others. Definitely would be destroyed by Vance in a debate.
I think another aspect to the loss of Kamala Harris is the mainstream media's monopoly over information has weakened. It's not gone away, but it's not where it was even a decade ago when Trump first started getting into this. And you can see this now with the Democrats trying to come out, and with, Newsom trying to put on his own podcast. They can clearly see that they're behind in the podcast world. However, it's not like Joe Rogan's this bastion of Republicanism. It's just they lost Joe Rogan too. They're still not reflecting on what their main issue is with their policies and their ideas. They continue to think, well, we're just not selling it correctly. We're getting, hurt by enough of the right.
Well, look at the messaging now. I mean, you've got this cranky Bernie Sanders talking about oligarchy. Half the people don't know what he's talking about. Campaigning with AOC, that is just still part of the very liberal part of the party. And those messages are not going to win a national campaign. I mean, even the Clintons, whether you like them or not, they knew you had to get elected. If you didn't get elected, nothing else mattered. And the Democrats seem to have forgotten that.
Yeah, when I first started following this, the Democrats were good at being radicals in suits, and however, they're no longer. They've let their true colors show, and maybe to too many people. I think there was definitely an agenda of letting in these millions of illegals was to swell up the census for 2030 to try and put more House seats in these deep blue states to give them better leverage for the presidential elections leading into the 2030s. And now, if Trump's able to, not only did he thwart it, but now reverse it some and pull back on that some, it's putting the Democrats in even a bigger hole now. Than that they knew was coming. They could tell that they were starting to lose support from Black and Hispanic voters, and they were planning to replace them with at least a new census block, and then eventually a new voting block over time.
Okay, so let's do a thought experiment. Let's pretend we're a room full of committed Democrats that need to win in 2028. What would we do? Knowing what we know, because we're all so smart, what would we do if we were Democrats who wanted to win?
I would talk to the governor of I would talk to the governor of Michigan, see if I could get her. I'd vote for a candidate like that.
Okay, so candidate,
Gretchen Whitmer.
yeah, okay. And then, Nye, I heard you say something.
I will stop talking about transgender kids putting male rapists in women's prisons. Stop advocating for men to be in women's sports. And stop being pro-abortionists. Support family values.
So I'll say this, I definitely think that they should back off on a fringe issue like the trans thing. I think that amongst the majority of people, you don't have to be a diehard Republican to just say, hey, you guys are pushing that issue a little too far. It affects far too few people for them to continue to push that issue. It's not gaining them any support. What I would say is on the abortion issue, I disagree with you. I think they should absolutely continue. Maybe they could shut up about it in states where they know that they can't win. But now that it's a states' rights issue, I think they should absolutely put that to the top of the agenda in the states where they have the support. Because in some of the states where they have the support, it's like 70-75% that they have in some of these states. And so I think they would be crazy to stop talking about abortion.
And even when Trump was on the ballot this last time, more states passed pro-abortion laws than not.
Yeah, I think that's a good one for them to continue to do. But I think they need to get strategic, right? They need to realize that, like, if those symbolic, like, hey, we're gonna fight the power, like, dude, fighting that fight in the states that truly want to disallow it, like, I think they should surrender that. And I think what they should do is continue in the states where they're strong. They use that messaging for fundraising, right? In the states that you know you're going to win anyways, you only talk about it because it helps you to raise money. But then you spend the money in the purple states where that issue plays well and you need to win. In the states you're going to lose, don't worry about it.
I would fire media haters like what they're doing right now. I think this is going to benefit the Democrats in the long run. Getting rid of Colbert, putting The View on hiatus. This constant negativity, while it plays to their base, it pushes away could-be voters for them. And the party itself has become the opposite of a big tent. It's a smaller tent now. They have like a loyalty test, and that's one of the. And you can always see when the parties start to contract in support when the loyalty tests come out, or the purity test. How socialist are you really? I mean, they were cutting off people. You can tell just in our own conversations with people. If you don't buy into the mantra, you get excommunicated from the left. You have to be 100% on board with them, or you're not one of us. And and that's how the Republicans were coming out of Bush Jr.'s second term. It became this, test to see who was the most conservative, right? A bunch of bullshit. So you can see that now that the Democrats are facing that issue, and here Trump ran on a big tent philosophy, generally speaking, and it ended up benefiting him. And if the Democrats can get back to accepting 80% allies rather than 20% enemies, they'll be on, driving towards gaining back power.
I'm going to throw out a name that I think if he ran as a Democrat, and he is a Democrat, by the way, I think he could win in a landslide. A fucking landslide. And I'll describe the qualities that I think would bode well for him. Number one, I think he would be able to be someone that could go on the podcast circuit and relate to people in a way. Like, he's been on Joe Rogan, by the way. He could go on Joe Rogan. He could go on all of these other podcasts, which, by the way, I think played a much bigger role in Trump's victory than some people realize. Being able to get up there and relate to people is really important. There's not a lot of Democrats that can do that. But you also need somebody that when something's thrown at them, they can have a personality about it and they can shrug it off. You really, like, if you think about what Trump does he deals with his hecklers better than any president since Reagan. Reagan was pretty good with the hecklers too. Here's the name, and you guys tell me if you think I'm fucking crazy. I personally don't think he'd be interested in it, but if he ran, I think he'd win in a landslide. And the candidate would be Bill Burr. I think if Bill Burr ran, the independents would flock to him because they like him because he's funny. The Trump-style communication of trying to browbeat them into submission, you're not going to do that with somebody like Bill Burr. If you've ever seen him handle that fucking Philly crowd, in that comedy club, he's precisely the guy that you could have go do town hall meetings, and there's nothing that a Republican can say to him that he wouldn't have a witty retort for. And if you can't get him, what I would do is I would highly recommend they hire him as a consultant to work whatever candidate you have to prepare them to how to communicate. I think Bill Burr would be a perfect candidate for the Democratic Party.
I'm glad I have Mayor Pete again. I'm sorry. Rhodes Scholar, military. He can also he also goes on talks in their camp. He's more eloquent, and that would be my candidate.
Yeah, that's what I think it is. He's the only one in 2020 that actually showed having the ability to think on his feet during debates.
Are you talking about Buttigieg?
Buttigieg. I mean, now, granted, it's an awful roster. It's an awful bench of politicians, but in 2020, Buttigieg was the best quote-unquote politician, right? Politician. Yeah, Bill Burr would probably mop the floor with him in relatability, being able to, share a beer with him, things like that. Do you think they could pull off just propping up someone that has zero instincts in politics. Could they really prop up like a comedian and run them? Like, you have to have a little bit of instinct.
Hold on. No, hold on. If you think that Bill Burr doesn't have good instincts, I would argue that you haven't listened to him. He's one of the most quick-witted human beings on the planet. And he actually pays attention to these issues more than you'd realize. Now, do I think that he would be like a constitutional scholar or the person that's going to write legislation or help influence it? Absolutely not. But as far as a spokesperson, to be able to take the arrows that are thrown against him and fire them back, like, I don't even think Trump could handle that smoke. I think that's the one guy that I see that seems to side with Democrats more so than Republicans, and I think he would probably piss off a lot of Democrats too. But I genuinely believe that is the person that would be. I think he would be a fucking steamroller over the Republican Party. And I think a lot of diehard Republicans would jump ship if he was the guy. I think that he would make them laugh, he would relate to them, and I think they would leave their party and they would join him. That's what I
think it takes more money to get him name familiarity. He's known in the media, but as a candidate, I mean, Buttigieg has already spent that money to a degree and is better known. I think that you almost have to lose your first election to get people to understand you. You forget that Trump was known in New York, but The Apprentice introduced him to the rest of the country, a highly edited, well-run show. And that bought him billions of dollars. So,
I think you have to look at that wild card, which is the independents. My state, 30% of the votes were independent voters, and that's really what has to be appealed to. I think when you talk about the purple states, Pennsylvania, which was the state that all eyes were on in this last election, when Trump first ran, the Democrats in Pennsylvania had close to 1 million. It was like 900,000 plus advantage over Republicans in registration. As of recently, it's about 170,000 of an edge, Dems over ours in that state. I mean, the registration for Democrats has just shrunken dramatically in the swing states. And in some of them, and a lot of them, the Republican registration went up, or they just stay as independents. So I think that's the thing that you have to really look at.
Abby, you're aware that right now the defected Republicans make up the majority of the quote-unquote independent side. Many of them are that the Republican Party has their way. Some against Trump. Some, even though they're for Trump, this time they're still against the Republican Party.
Well, clearly, because they came out and voted for Trump in this, it would make sense. At least in my state, we just kept seeing all these rural counties voting. We couldn't figure it all out, and the independents went red. But if I was a Dem running, I mean, that's who I would focus on. In this last election, our senator was up for re-election. Every ad that she ran, every single ad said, "I don't listen to any party. I vote my conscience. No party tells me how to vote." I mean, it was kind of astonishing. I mean, she just absolutely ran to the independents. So that's what I would do if I was James Carville, like the newer version. I don't know.